All right, I just picked up a 3D printer and I feel like making something. So today, that's what we'll be doing. I'm thinking for our first project, we can make a 3D printed TIG torch holder. I had one previously, but I wasn't too happy with it. And I feel like a TIG torch holder is a first good project. It's not too complicated to make. This is actually the final product here. I got magnets on the back, which is pretty cool. It's going to be side mounted, but I'll be talking about that in the design process. I use Fusion 360 to mock everything up first on the computer, and we took measurements and everything. So we'll do that, and then from there we can go over and talk about the revisions that were made, because this is definitely not the first version. There were multiple versions to get this right. Even this is, it's good enough, I feel like, but we'll talk about that, and then we'll do a final test because this is 3D printed plastic. It's a PETG plastic, kind of the same stuff as water bottles. It's a little different, but for the most part, it's the same. We'll do a final test where I have a piece of exhaust back here that needs to get welded up, and we'll do that and see if the TIG torch holder will hold up to the high temps of the TIG torch. Hopefully it does. So yeah, let's just get into it. I also feel like I should kind of explain why I decided to pick one up. Um, I went down the rabbit hole the other day with just seeing all the different things that people were making with it, and I realized that it's a pretty useful tool to have for the garage. For one, you can prototype parts, especially if it's a really complicated and intricate part, if it's something for the engine bay or for the interior of the car. You can mock it up, make it out of plastic, see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, then you just throw it away, make a new one, revise it, and you don't have to waste a bunch of money in materials if it's something made out of metal. And if it's something that doesn't need to be structurally strong, then you can just make it out of plastic and it's good to go. You don't have to wait for something to show up. You don't have to spend the money. You just make it, design it, make it, and you have it. I thought that was really cool. And for me personally, it's also an excuse to learn CAD. I've been thinking about learning it for a while, but this is kind of the push that I needed to learn Fusion 360. Something cool would actually be to create stuff with carbon fiber parts. So I know that they sell carbon fiber infused plastics for it. There's like a whole variation of different plastics you can choose for the 3D printer. So you could actually make molds out of plastic. Then from there, you can make stuff with carbon fiber, whether it's just the carbon fiber sheets that you see, or if it's forged carbon fiber. I don't know if you guys have seen videos on that, but it's essentially just chopped up carbon fiber. You'll make the mold, you stuff in the carbon fiber all chopped up, you fill it with epoxy, and you can make whatever you really want. But honestly, there's just a lot you can do with it. I'm just getting started with it, so we'll see how I feel about it later on down the road. But for now, from this project, I'm excited about it. So let's talk design. So for this, I thought the best way to do it would be to reference the old part. So this is what I had before. It's made by Strong Hand Tools. It works like it's a TIG torch holder. It does what it's supposed to do, but I think it's just a little too bulky for what I want. It has a pretty cool little hook system here for the hose that attaches to the TIG torch, but it's big, it's bulky, and most of all, it goes on top of the table. I kind of want all the space I can get on my table since it's so small. So what I want is something that is tiny and that just you can attach it to the side of the table. So for that, we'll need magnets. Then we can take this part, use the measurements that I need from it. So for example, I took the measurements from the holder itself, the gap right here, which I think was 20 millimeters. And then we also took the height and the width of the object just to get a rough estimate of what I needed. From there, we took it to the computer and we used Fusion 360 to mock it up and kind of design a model that I'd be happy with. I'm not going to go in detail with what exactly I did to get that part since I'm still learning it. I feel I'm not the best teacher for this, but there's tons of videos on using Fusion 360. This is definitely not one of those videos. But once I had my part and I was happy with it, everything looked good, it was time to test it out. So I took the STL file from Fusion, sent it over to the Slicer app, which is called Cura, and that's essentially, it communicates with the 3D printer and it tells it all the different settings that you want. So for example, I used PETG plastic, which, since there's such a different variation of plastics, they all take different temperatures to melt and work how they're supposed to. So it's what communicates and tells a printer, okay, the part's gonna be made out of PETG, set the bed temp to, I think it was like 90 degrees Celsius, set the extruder temp to, set the nozzle temp to 250 degrees Celsius, and a bunch of other different little settings. It gets pretty complicated, but that essentially is what talks with the printer. So once I had it on Slicer and had everything, had all the settings dialed in as much as I could get them, I then made it with a 3D printer. So had to wait a couple hours for the 3D printer to do its thing. I think it ended up taking like, I don't know, somewhere between like 3 to 6 hours. And we came up with our first prototype. And this is the first prototype. So again, I use PETG plastic. It's supposed to be more temperature resistant than the more typical PLA plastic. I made it using just like 5 or 10% infill, which is essentially the inside of the part, how much percentage of it is air and how much is filament. So this one was only like 10%, which isn't a lot actually. I just kind of wanted to make a mock-up just to see if it would fit with the torch, and it did fit. But when I was mocking it up and testing it out and stuff, I ended up breaking it. So it actually broke right here. I glued it back together. But there was some changes I wanted to make to it. One, it was weak, so I needed to strengthen it up a bit. And two, I put 5 magnets in the back, but these magnets are tiny and they're not very strong. So when I put it on the side of the table and I put the torch on it, it would just slide straight down. So I don't want that. I want it to be firm on the table and not move. So that was the first revision that we made. So this is the updated part 2.0 right here. See, look at all those magnets. This is the original, 5 magnets. This is the new one, a lot more. And tested it out. I also made, I made the arms here. I made them a bit stiffer, a bit thicker compared to the other one. And I also added more infill. I think this one was more, I think 30%. So it's definitely a lot heavier. It's sturdier too. But again, these look like a lot of magnets, but it wasn't enough to hold the TIG torch and not move so much. Every time I put it on, it would just slide straight down. It's a lot, but it's still not strong enough for what I wanted. So it was time to make a third revision. And here it is. This is very similar to 2.0. The only difference is, let me show you, for example, here's 2.0. They're very similar. The only changes I made was I made the throat depth for the holder itself a little deeper. It's just a little bit deeper, as well as I put bigger magnets on the back. So this actually helps. Now with these magnets, it's actually holding still. I can put the torch on it and it's not going anywhere. It stays in place. It slides just a bit, which maybe over time, if these magnets become weaker or if I get tired of it, I'll double up the magnets on the backside. But it's working how I want it to. So I'm kind of happy with this. And the only thing we have left now to do is to test it and see if it'll even withstand the temps. Like I was saying, it is PETG. It's supposed to withstand high temps, but there's a limit to it, right? Since it is just plastic. Kind of what I'm thinking is if it ends up melting, since I already have the model on Fusion 360, we can send it over to a machine shop and we can have it made out of aluminum. But before that, we'll just test this out, and if it works, then I'll be happy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and weld up some parts for the exhaust here and see if it'll hold up to the high temps. have this welded out, and we've seen that the TIG torch holder did survive. But I'll be frank, it wasn't that much heat. Since it is stainless steel, I didn't go too hot. So what I'm thinking of doing now is switching over to aluminum and just welding up some aluminum practice pieces and just trying to get the torch really hot, and we'll see if it'll survive then. Alright, so I just got done welding up some aluminum here. I got the torch really hot, and I was able to cause just a little bit of damage to the part here. So there's a couple dents just right here. I think that's from the cup itself, as well as it did warp a bit there. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'll probably open this up a bit. Might extend this out just a bit too, so it doesn't touch the backing. But it held up well, and like it didn't, completely fall apart or anything like that. I wasn't expecting it to or anything. It did its job, so I definitely call this a success. So now that we're finished up with everything, I am happy with how this turned out. The torch did get really hot when we were welding the aluminum, and it did melt it just a bit. But again, like I said, if anything, you can just remake a new one or make it out of metal in the future. There are some slight changes I might make, like I might open this up just a bit, as well as I might make the arms a bit longer just to keep the torch from touching the back, as well as I might make it so you can fit two magnets in the same spot here. I think that might help it stick to the table just a bit more. Alright, this is future me coming at you. So I did end up making some more modifications to this. I guess this makes this 4.0. I did end up making it so you can fit two magnets in the same spot. So now these are doubled up, and it actually does help a lot with helping the holder stick to the table. I also opened up the slot here a little more, so it's a bit wider. So now it can fit the torch easily, and it might even be able to fit other torches other than the one that I have, which is a CK17. So if you guys are interested, I'll put this in my Thingiverse library for you guys to download for free. And yeah. But overall, I'm happy with it. I think it was a cool little first project. I think in the next video, if you guys want to see more of this, I might throw in some more details on how I came up with the design for this, as well as modeling it up in Fusion 360 and all that. I'm still just kind of learning it for myself. But as we go along, I'll just get better at making stuff and designing them up and all that. But yeah, if you guys stuck around this long, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And hopefully we can make more stuff like this and a bunch of more projects that I have in mind, whether it's with the car or 3D printing, whatever it is. I just like making stuff. That's why this video is a bit different than in the past couple videos I've been making. But yeah, I think I covered everything. So had a blast making this and making this video. For those of you that stuck around, thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, guys, take care.